The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast platform, its affiliates, or even the hosts. The information provided is for general informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal, financial, or professional advice. The host and guests are not liable for any errors of omission in the content, nor for any losses, injuries, or damages arising from the use of the information provided. Listeners are encouraged to seek professional advice relevant to their specific circumstances.
A frank conversation with Hazel Moon. With Hazel Moon. Real stories, real people, real conversations. Just fine. You're listening to Real Frank Conversation with Hazel Moon.
Are we live? What's good, great people? I am Hazel Moon, and I have a special guest in the building today. Tonight's guest is not just building a brand, she's built a sanctuary. From Houston, Texas, she's created Sweet Love Sanctuary, a space centered around healing, spirituality, sexuality, self-discovery, mentorship, and transformation. Through her work, she focuses on healing people, helping people reconnect with their inner power, spiritual gifts, emotional healing, and authentic selves. Tonight isn't just about spirituality, it's about evolution. It's about what happens when pain forces you to rediscover yourself and when purpose is born from healing. Please help me welcome the goddess Jessie herself of Sweet Love Sanctuary.
Hey, peace. What's going on? That was beautiful.
Hey man, this look, for you, I told you, anything and everything.
I see. Yeah, I need that in a picture frame. That was beautiful. Thank you for that introduction. So, hello, welcome everybody. Peace.
How you feeling?
I feel great, man. That I was already feeling good, but that definitely raised my vibrations a few notches. So I'm beaming high right now.
See, look, if I can raise the vibration of a goddess, then look, I know that I'm gonna be good in this lifetime. Sincerely.
Yeah. You're forever blessed. You know how to do the goddess, so you're right.
I appreciate it. I want to get into the origin story, right? I know you've tackled it on other platforms before.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking into your interview that you did, and from staying in your friend's garage while dealing with other personal traumas in a prior relationship to now having a sanctuary, a space for people to grow, heal, and step into their power. Talk to me about that time period, right? That transitioning period, and who you were becoming in private.
Right. Oh man. Yeah. So a lot of people ask me how the sanctuary started, and I mean, it depends on what starting point you're looking from, but I do like to say, like I got divorced, and during that time where I was, that's such a great question. I think that I was trying to fill a void of a life that like I knew. And usually when you're doing that from a place of a deficit, you're doing all the things you're probably really not supposed to be doing. That's where the trauma responses and the survival modes and all that stuff comes up, and you're living in that. And then I think that you get to a point to where you make a decision to like do something different. And I was making it happen. I was surviving, but I decided to do like a 30-day fast.
Yeah.
And focused on like getting myself together, getting myself, holistically, emotionally, physically, together. And that was the catapult into like my spiritual journey. And one door opened after another and revealing my purpose through what I was going through my pain, through me healing the traumas that I had going on through really the foundation of African spirituality. I didn't realize that that was happening at the time, but um, a friend doing a reading for me, and then me getting into herbal medicines turned into a long journey of discovering what our ancestors did before slavery. And that practice helped me navigate through what I was going through, and at the same time revealed a huge purpose and a huge, um, I guess, need of why I came here and what the whole thing was about. And so, one thing led to another. There's a big gap there, of course, in the story, but
Right.
uh, the sanctuary, um, came about, or at least my spiritual journey. Now, the place itself actually did come from another pain. I my house got broken into,
Right.
and at the time I was going to move to Atlanta, Georgia. But because my apartment got broken into, shout out, Westheimer and, all that.
Yeah, I was
Everybody
about to
loves
say.
Houston. um, and so I decided to purchase a home, and I'm from the University of Houston. I cheer the U of H. I'm a Cougar. So, you know what I'm saying? Third Ward, Texas is like where I'm from. So when I decided, yeah, H-Town, hold it down. When I decided to purchase, I wanted to buy black, you know, and in where our people was, because they gentrifying heavily, in this area. So, um, when the doors are aligned, things happen, and it was aligned for me to get a space. And oddly enough, I was going through my spiritual journey at the same time. And the more that I um, actualize myself inside of my own healing, my spiritual gifts, and then also recognizing like that this was something that I was supposed to do for others, the more the doors opened up for the space to like, be mine, and to um what it was for,
Right.
like this is, yes, my home, but it's our spiritual temple, and inside this space, um, it's a community like center, and
Yeah.
we do real healing work here inside of this space. And through this we dove really deep into our ancestral practices, and living the goddess lifestyle. So that's a very long answer to that
But hey,
question.
the answer hits a lot of different points, and honestly, kind of sparks a bunch more questions for me.
Okay.
Because I wonder for you, right? What did your own personal healing journey force you to confront about yourself?
I think one of the biggest things was um like survival mode,
Yeah.
confronting survival mode, um confronting like the way I was going about connecting in relationships, the way that I was identifying inside of those, even the life that I was choosing to live. Like, was it my idea, or was I living the idea that like I thought I was supposed to live, because this is what successful looks like, this is what a good woman, whatever, looks like, a wife, and all those things. And so, my journey made me confront my authenticity, the truths of my desires. And those were game changers for me.
What part of yourself do you feel like you had to forgive before you could truly help other people?
Mm. So, I think that probably one of the biggest areas that I had to forgive was um, like having a fear of, being alone, and like how that may show up inside of spaces. I was able to identify a trauma, and I tell, the goddesses at the sanctuary and my godchildren about my little girl in the theater. And so, when you do this work, you're a lot of times able to identify like where the root of a lot of the things that you go through come from. And for one of the things that I had to identify was my little girl in the theater. So in the 5th grade, we used to take a school field trip to Disney World. And inside of this trip, you were with a group of, 8 girls or what have you. And even though I wanted to be friends with everyone, in one way or another, I was getting picked on for whatever reason, right?
Right.
And so in exchange, I wanted to give, I would share my toys, share my candy, share money, like, because I felt like, oh, if I share, the things, because I was getting made fun of because of whatever I had, that, I could be in the group and I could be friends and we could all, be friends together. And once we got to Epcot, and there's this ride called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And we all got in the thing where you sit down and they take you through a simulation. Well, once we started the ride, I realized that all the girls that I was with were sitting over there, and there was many seats in between us, and then there was me, and there was a lot of other seats, and there's the other girls. And in that moment, in the 5th grade at Disney World, I felt alone, right? And a lot of things inside of sisterhood and friendships and connections and overloving and overgiving and validation and all those things that come up from feeling alone with a big group of people came from that moment, came from that little girl in the theater. And through the work that I did, that probably was one of the biggest things that I had to confront so that I could grow into who I was supposed to be, have sisterhood, have friendship, have a community, have all those things. Once I grew into making peace with that, making that little girl feel safe, creating tools and utilizing our ancestors in spirit to help hold and grow you past that trauma. And so that probably is one of the biggest things that I had to like identify. And it's not like the little girl doesn't exist. She's still there, and life will continue to come up. And because I know that she's there, I'm able to come from an empowered space of now that little girl feeling great being alone and realizing that there's nothing wrong with being alone. And I actually really had a great time inside of that moment. But it takes journeys to go through to transform such an imprinting moment in someone's life when they're 8 or 10 or however old you are. And we carry these traumas and they grow with us as we become an adult, but a lot of times those things are linked to your gifts, and also probably something that you have to offer to the world, your purpose and all those things. So I'm grateful for the little girl in the theater, and she, when she may come up, now it's a space that I can comfort, or I can find comfort in, where it used to be a space that unconsciously and then consciously would push a button, would be a trauma, trigger for me. And so with me being able to identify that, I'm able to help and support others figure those things out, and get tools to be empowered through those spaces existing versus those things being wounds that hold us back and hold us down.
I mean, you hit another great deal of points that out in that. But the first like thing that pops into my mind is, well, how is that is the little girl in the theater? What is like her vibration level at now? Versus then. I know she's vibrating higher, but where exactly is that? On the scale.
Yeah, man, I'm so grateful that you asked me that, because like even inside of that, it's healing me, to go and sit in that space. I think that the little girl in the theater is more mature. Like we get frozen in those times. I was 9, I think, in the 5th grade, because I was younger than everybody. And I dealt with a lot of being picked on for like being smart, or having a nice outfit, or it was very weird how things showed up for me. But so it I think taught me to maybe be good but not too good growing up, so that you can have friends and things like that. And throughout that, it does dim your light and dim you getting towards your destiny if you're, you're destined for greatness. And I know that I am. So now the little girl is not so little, and she, I think, has retold that story. She looks at the people, even getting in line and joking and here, have some of my candy and all those things of like how she did then. Like she looks at that from a different view. Like I was really yearning to be accepted, and we're like pretty much like to me, like buying love. Like I was trying to gift people into loving me.
Right.
And so like now, um, the little girl is sharing her candy, but there's nothing that she really is looking for in return,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And when she goes to sit down, you know, she feels she's not even thinking about being alone. Like that's not even her consciousness anymore. And she's not, because usually I'm there,
Yeah.
37-year-old me instead of 9-year-old me. So her ancestors are there. I'm a priestess. I'm Oshun. Oshun is there. So she not just is okay, I'm sitting alone. She's like me and my energy and my spirits. Like, you know, maybe that's why all that space was there, because I was really bigger than what I thought I was. So it is a whole nother I would say like mindset inside of like what all was really happening at that time. So yeah, that's where she's at now.
You you've always been in like an amazing, you know, giver in my eyes. I want to be very, very clear about that. Like you've all like as far as just sharing who you are and teaching through, your experiences. Um, I want to talk about go further into your spiritual gifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you first realizing that you were spiritually connected different than other people. What was that moment like? And how did you react to yourself?
Oh, the first time I
Yep.
realized I was different.
Yep.
Oh, oh man, I'm trying to go back now because like the first time, um, I want to say like maybe like when Selena died. I know this is very funny, but
So
when Selena died, um, I was
oddly
hanging.
enough, I feel you. Like I want to be very real with you. I feel you on that. I
I'm
don't know
from
what it
H-Town.
was.
Selena, that's our Beyonce for
That is
real.
all. That is. Well, we got Beyonce, but
We
that's
got
like,
Beyonce from her, but you know what I'm saying? People know Beyonce, or some people say
yeah,
Diana Ross. Like
like that's
after Diana, before Beyonce was
yeah.
really
Like we
big,
gotta listen. Hey, if y'all don't know this, Houston got a lot of talent. So just
a
let you
lot of
know, I'm
talent.
like a lot of talent is in, what I'm saying, the great state of Texas, but in Houston in particular, amazing talent. But yeah, go ahead, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, right. And you're right, because like where the sanctuary is, this is where the greats,
I'm,
the
I'm literally sitting with
Beyonce's, the
amazing.
Megan Thee Stallions, right here in these streets where we at. Okay, we play
Exactly.
no games about that. But yeah, so when Selena died, I was staying in the hood with my granny, and we was in the in the projects, and there was like a Mexican family. It's all minorities.
Right.
And when Selena died, it was very impactful. I could feel it intimately, a sadness. And I'm not a person who really gets wrapped up in celebrities and death. I wasn't bawling, but I felt it immensely. And the girls that I was playing with, they decided to basically do like a tribute to Selena. But, I always say that people from like a Hispanic or Latin heritage, they are not as far removed culturally from their ancestral practices. So there's things that they do. They light the candles, they say the prayers, they make an offering, or things like that. And that's like regular. So it's not anything like glorified good or bad or anything like that, but they just do that. So they're like, come on, let's put this balloon together and we get the magazine. And like we kind of did to me what I would say today is ancestor veneration. We were venerating
Right.
Selena. And we were going through the magazines. You know, back in the day, they used to have the magazines with all the celebrities in it and the
Yep.
posters and all that stuff. And I was going through the magazine and I remember saying something and like the page just turned and it turned to like her picture. And it was such a freaky moment. Everybody was like it was a whole moment. And then, you know, we let the balloon go and you know, there's all these things that you just feel and we're kids, you know, so I'm probably like maybe 11 or something at this time. And no, maybe I was younger than that. I can't even remember. I probably was younger than that, like maybe 6 now that I'm thinking about it. But
Yeah.
even though that was nothing at that time, I did feel energy that now I know what to call that, you know, or I
Right.
definitely don't take these little things that happen as coincidence or something funny as not a, you know, real thing, you know, my ashe, my power, or my ancestors, or something inside of my spirit team. So that probably was when I realized something was different, you know, but because I was with people that were of Hispanic, you know,
Right.
lineage, they had a different look. They was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, you need to go talk to my auntie, you know what I'm saying? Who, you
Right.
know, is the like the family medicine woman, the curandera, the bruja, all those things, you know, and I didn't know what that meant. Or, you know, none of that was even in my consciousness at that time. But that was like to me an ancestral answer, you know, being connected to the elements at that time of confirmation, you know, of um a veneration of an ancestor, you know, and a connection to people who may have lived one day and now are gone in the spiritual realm.
Hmm.
So that's, I guess, where the mediumship came from a long time ago.
That makes sense. That makes sense. To a quote of yours where you were speaking about some of the challenges that you've experienced, you know, within the space that you're in, and you mentioned that it was misogyny and the patriarchy that people experience in spiritual spaces.
Yes.
Um, Talk to me about, you know, how that has impacted your work, and you know, you creating this safe space for people to be able to connect to their ancestral practices.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, I don't know exactly how. I do know how it came to be, but it's a long story. You know, but I was told clearly, you know, that
Mm.
my um purpose is to dismantle misogyny and African spirituality. And to um basically do that through the Sweet Love Sanctuary, right? And so, you know, when I went through my own journey inside of this practice, a lot of people from African descent or Black people, or however you want to call it, across the diaspora, um, find a place of peace and you see yourself inside of African spirituality. And so there is, you know, a huge migration of people coming into an enlightenment from various Abrahamic faiths and things like that, right? And
Right.
that's beautiful and that's great and that's wonderful. But if there are identical isms and schisms, which are the sexist, racist, classist,
Mhm.
homophobic, all of that thing, you know, that's still happening inside of those spaces, then the issue is still there. And what is something that's supposed to be medicine can really be hurting people in the exact same way of another space that they're just trying to come out of that has those same things, you know, because African spirituality is um it is a monotheistic practice. So there's one God creator in the in heaven, Olodumare. Um, but also it's about the balance of the polarity of life, you know,
Yes.
masculine and feminine, light, dark, up, down, whichever way you want to do it, even flow, expansion and
Yin and
contraction,
yang.
all of that, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, there is an exaltation of the feminine and honoring it for all it is, just as much as masculine energy in this practice. But if in the way that man goes about um, uh, dishing that out has
Mhm.
patriarchic, you know, overtones, undertones, methods, or things are delivered from a misogynistic point of view, then we still aren't able to really utilize this as for what it was meant. And so there's a lot of people that are in this practice of Orisha, Ifa, Santeria, Lukumi, Palo, et cetera, voodoo, you know, um, and are experiencing um, all kind of things that stem from financial, emotional, mental, abuse, abuse of power, a lot of harassment, sex, all the things, And I did not experience a range of those things, but I did have my own, experience where I at least got to see what was going on. And so inside of that space, I feel like Oshun kind of plucked me from an area and said, here's a sweet little sanctuary. And, the people that need this medicine where you're at here in Houston, Texas, or from what they need to get to you, have a safe space to learn, this practice, to connect to their ancestors, to, elevate through African spirituality, learn, heal. Um, and they're not going to have to worry about those things. And so this space carries cut to me like double purpose inside of, yes, you're going to heal, you're going to figure out who you are and what you're supposed to be doing with this life, thing, and, get tools to help you get into that space where you're living life according to what you desire and in alignment with your destiny. But also through that, there's safety, there is um, the absence of um, patriarchy and misogyny and how it shows up, and not just from men, but just how the isms show up from both men, women, and everything in between.
We're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with more of your knowledge and wisdom for the audience. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. All right. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Commercial.
WSAN Radio, the soul of America and beyond. Join DJ Ron G and the WSAN crew every day for the Ron G Morning Show, Funk Friday, and Gospel Brunch Sunday. From local heroes to national guests, WSAN Radio connects you to the pulse of our community. One song, one story, one soul at a time. WSAN Radio, where music, motivation, and movement come together. Streaming live, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and WSANradio.com.
Got me together with this two-piece. It's the good leggings, no see-through business.
And we are back. Big shout out to WSAN Radio. You guys, make sure if you are in the San Antonio, Texas area, make sure you guys are tuning in. And if in fact you have a commercial that you would like to run on our lovely network, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. How you feeling so far?
I'm feeling good. You coming with the questions, you got me digging deep. I love it.
Hey man, look, that's literally what I'm here for. And that's part of the reason why I enjoy this, because I learned through you. I learned through your responses, and honestly speaking, I mean, I've always been learning from you since the jump. Um, you know, I kind of wonder on my end, this is just on a personal tip, right?
Okay.
What wounds show up the most in the people who come to the Sweet Love Sanctuary?
Hmm. Um, the mother wound, the sister wound,
Mm,
and or I mean maybe I might say like the parental wound because it's mother and
yeah,
father.
right.
And like sexual shame and trauma.
Mm.
Those are probably the most
Yes.
consistent across the board in one way or another. Hmm.
What makes it so hard for people to be able to discuss spirituality and sexuality? You know what I mean? Like, I feel from my end, I've always believed that it was, like as you mentioned before, that Abrahamic religions have kind of like
Hmm.
set to where it's kind of a taboo thing. But from your perspective, what are you thinking?
Um, I think that the reason it's been separated is because if everyone was doing it, we
Mm,
would be um, fully conscious, embodied, present individuals, very probably at peace and happy. And so,
mm,
inside of whatever systems or the man or the whatever that the powers that be, you know, um, that programming is not to me the most conducive to whatever those energies goals are. If you're at peace and if you're happy, materialism probably isn't going to be at an all-time high. Consumerism probably isn't going to be at an all-time high. Violence and depression and sickness and bad health, like mortality rates, all of those things would not be, in the spaces that they would be at, and a lot of those things being how they are, as we're seeing just like what's happening in the world right now, is very profitable, or on an energetic level, it serves that energy. And so I think that it's the answer. It is the thing that makes you individually um present in your own body, and so many other things. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the connection and the two sides to the same coin of sexuality and spirituality. But especially for women, but I mean men as well, because there is a sense of like um, a double standard of the freedom and the exploration and the unapologeticness to me of male sexuality, even though it has its own box as well that we support fellas in breaking free. But for women, if you really knew what was there inside of you and how you would be and how you would live and how that would change your life, um I think they don't want us to know that in a massive consciousness thing, whoever they are. And
right.
that's the real answer. I look at certain practices in the Abrahamic faith, and we are of ancestral spirituality and Christianity, Muslim, whatever our ancestors practice, we honor and we give a sense of connection to it. Even though I'm a Orisha Ifa, priestess, um, but there are some that are Christians and priests, or Muslims and practitioners. Our faith doesn't separate it. But I have seen some practices that are specifically built on male domination and possessiveness,
Mm,
and that being like a connection to God or source or what have you through whatever word or text that they believe in or doctrine. And to me, the things that I battle the most inside of like the church hurt and the religious healing that has to be done usually are from those practices that have the most depth of the female suppression inside of their you know practice. And so I would say the deeper that is, the deeper the wound is, because even though its focus is on the oppression and suppression, of the feminine, um, the masculine, it gets suppressed in that too. It's just the illusion of power or control or purity or whatever that sanctity is. I think it's also fed into that overall system of like what that religion or what that practice could be. um but it has that human side that can take something, and too much of anything cannot be a good thing. And to me, how it has gone for eons, where the suppression of the feminine or whatever has been used through these practices, like not just what's in the written in the word, but the culture, the social political aspect of how the community shows up through that doctrine. um, I think makes it such a taboo subject, that with the fear um, programming from the beginning. You're taught, I'm born of sin, like you're
Right.
already bad, where like that's almost one of the main things that we start with here, is that you are whole, you are complete, just as you are right now, healing or no healing. And that's a tough
Yes.
concept just from the beginning for people to wrap their heads around. So getting to sex and sexuality and all those things and pleasure, I mean, that's a whole nother mountain, but we do it. We climb those Mount Everests, and it's beautiful on the other side over here.
I love the fact that that's what you start with, that you're already whole and complete as a person. I believe that this society nowadays thrives off of that, oh, we're all trying to find our missing pieces, we're moving through this life seeking that, when the whole entire time, no, you were already good and complete as you, because there's only you know what I mean. That's a beautiful place to start from.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
just
I'm sorry to me cut you off.
No, go ahead.
We have this concept in the Yoruba tradition called Ori, the Ori complex. And Ori is your consciousness, it's your mind. And there's many aspects of the Ori. And, that's basically self, right? And we believe that the first God in heaven is the creator. But your first God on earth is your Ori, is your inner you, your consciousness, right? And you know, it's made up of your actual mind, your inner knowing and your higher self. And we teach this complex, and there's a practice to go along with honoring it and keeping it strong and keeping it focused, because we believe that if you don't have a strong mind, you can't connect to God, to nature, to your kids, to anything, right? And just that concept alone um changes things. It gives a practice and a process to actually perform the act of working on your mental strength and health, right? And these aspects, these practices are the spiritual technologies of, you know, African spirituality. And, um that starting with self, like that's literally the foundation of our practice. And that's something that every person has. It doesn't matter what you believe, white, black, purple, yellow, you know animals, you know every living thing has an ori, has a consciousness, and it has to be strong in order for you to experience life and work towards your destiny. So we believe in the you heavily here and develop that along with everything else.
I want to move into switch gears a little bit,
Okay.
but I'm still kind of on the same track. What are some signs someone loves from trauma, from a space of trauma, instead of actual love?
hmm Um, so some of them, you're a workaholic. You're constantly
Mm.
worried about money. You're hyper vigilant to any perceived signs of threat. Like you can't just go out and like you're always like looking out for things. Um, you have low self esteem. You constantly go into relationships where your voice is suppressed, or you feel misunderstood, or you feel powerless or weak. So many things. You have dysfunctional relationships with your family. Those are, some key indicators. If you walk around life with a lot of apathy, like you just kind of don't care, everything is I don't care, I don't care. A lot of times that's a defense mechanism to not feel, when truly some of those are the most empathetic people, with empathetic gifts. A very low libido or non-existent, or a hyperactive libido, and it's just like your libido is out of control. So those are some. I mean, I could go on. I have like hundreds.
I mean, I believe you. I
Yeah.
would
So
definitely believe you.
a lot of these different traumas are based off of the energy centers in our body.
Mm.
And so if anyone's familiar with the chakras, I've heard about that. A lot of those different things that I pulled out were indicators of certain, um let's say, deficiencies in various chakras, which pretty much um regulate your entire body, right?
Mm.
And so there are many, because there's a lot of different areas for us: our safety, our security, our creativity, our ability to forgive and love and be open, to speak our truth, to um, foresee things for ourselves, and to trust in what we see and all those things, or what we idealize and visualize for ourselves. And those things, usually show up in a hypo or hyper version of who you're supposed to be. So that's how you can see people showing up and they overcompensate a lot. Usually that is a trauma response, because they're trying to like adjust for feeling insecure or inefficient in some kind of way. Or you see people that that they are bigger, but they recluse. And so we try to find that balance in between, and that's your true you. It doesn't mean it's the middle. It is just whatever the true you actually is. And there's a lot more people that need to bravado, and there's some people that need to kind of chill, because we get into being performative and all those things, and we make connections and relationships from those spaces, and that's where trauma bonds come, and so on and so forth.
I've been writing down. I've been taking a little couple notes. I'm not going. Um, what do you feel like is the hardest truth people avoid about themselves?
mm, the hardest truth that people avoid, um mm, one is that they are a sexual being. That's
Mm.
probably one.
Yeah.
Not to say that they are just like, you know 50 shades of gray or whatever, even though that is a lot, but um that there is this sense of sexual and sensuality that does live in them, and that expresses itself through them in one way or another. Maybe not necessarily erotically, but not excluded of that. I would say another truth that people avoid is their darkness. The aspects about them that um may not be like deemed as like right or good. Anger, especially for us, um
Yeah.
black
Yeah.
folk, to acknowledge our anger and our rage, our sadness, those things. And a lot of times, we don't realize that like that anger is not necessarily a bad thing, and that to acknowledge it is to release it and to be able to transform it into, you know, how that shows up, because we are people of a spectrum, light and dark. And so everybody isn't just la la la, you
Yeah.
know.
But I
But
think that's just.
also, yeah.
I was gonna say I just think that society is kind of conditioning us to suppress that anger and
Mhm.
to shove it away in the closet because of the fact that if we don't show up in these different spaces that we're in that like face,
Right.
then it makes those that are surrounding us uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
I think that's part of the reason why it's kind of been so difficult for us to be able to get out the messages that we need to get out there into the world, especially 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 from spaces where, hey, like there are times where we should in fact be angry, We should in
Yeah.
fact be enraged, and we should in fact be acting upon that, whether it be in a constructive or destructive manner.
Hmm.
Sincerely.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. And I'll take it one step further. Um, in our genetics, suppression of our feelings, period, but especially anything negative, is, a huge space where we have epigenetically been trained to cut that off so that we can survive. Post traumatic slave disorder has done a number on us in many different ways. Many women hide their bodies, or they suppress, or people just suppress their emotions because many incarnations of you ago, any kind of expression of even your greatness,
Right.
if you were too good of a slave, you got sold, you wasn't with your family, you wasn't with
Yeah.
anybody you knew, you got moved around and used like a mule. So a suppression of your gifts, of your all the things that make you bright, like we have some systematic things that have kind of continued that thing on in a different way. But
Yeah.
this goes way back to, our mamas, not wanting to be too beautiful, too smart, too anything, because that usually meant you were not your own. Your body was not your own, you know and so life shows up the way that it does because of those generational traumas. And now that we are where we are, I do believe we are the generation that is the product of that. And our
Yes.
ancestors and our elders, they survived through it for us to get to this part. Like, there was nobody back in the day that was on a live webcast talking about the things that we've been through and how to heal through that. So
True.
regardless of everything that happened, they did something right for us to get to this point. And so now
Mhm.
it is our time to do what our mothers and our fathers and grandmothers and all that so forth didn't have the space to do because of the time that they lived in, and stop the cycles, and now get back present in our body now, heal the body holistically, heal the body emotionally, heal the body spiritually, so that now what goes forward is generational healing, versus trauma. But you just have to be conscious, of what that looks like, and be real with yourself inside of like the conditions that we've been put in, and then the choices that we make, because we're the freest that we've ever been,
Mm.
you know
Yeah. This is you're right. You're right.
and
This is
we are our
actually the
ancestors' wildest dreams. Like, look at where you're at. Like, there's somebody that dreamed of this that that was nowhere near this, right?
right.
And so we have to give empathy, I think, to our lineage, so that we can, like, the forgiveness will stop the continuation of certain generational traumas where hurt people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I went on a little tangent. I usually call that pussy church whenever I go on my little sermon. But yeah, like that post traumatic slave disorder, with patriarchy on top of that, with misogyny on top of that, with you know, um all of those like kind of isms, it's done a number on us. But look, we continue as a people to thrive and shine through it. And so, as we identify them, we also um don't give strength to the weight of what it did. We use those things and transform those weapons into tools to elevate and live the life that our ancestors dreamed us, which is to be black and free.
You have a few books here. Um, 30, 30 ways to start manifesting, 7 days
Yes,
of
yes,
a reset,
yes.
sex magic. I I just want you to know that I'm just proud to see sitting down with a
Thank
fellow author. You know, well, I see you, and I just want to honor you for all this. You have anything else coming out as far as go?
So in September, we're going to be having a very large event called Oshun Feast Day Festival. in Houston, Texas. If anybody knows H-Town, we're going to be doing it at the Media Block. And it's going to be a
September
2-day
what?
September 5th and
September
6th.
5th. And you didn't
Yes.
you didn't think to reach out to me, someone who helps throw festivals, to help you with the festival. Don't you worry about it. I got you.
Here we are. Divine timing. Look at that. Yes, I am tripping, and here we are. Give me right. Give me right. But yeah, so it's a 2-day thing. So Friday's gonna be workshop seminars. We're gonna do a performance showcase with a lot of Oshun energy. So inside of the practice of Orisha Nifa, Oshun is the Orisha of divine femininity, of revolution, of yes, love and beauty, and all the sweet things in life. But she is the river inside of like natural energy and flow, and um is around magnetism and revolutionary change. And so, that energy of divine feminine and the power of that, we're going to be honoring that. And you're going to see that displayed in a lot of different ways in our performance showcase that night. And then the next day, we're going to have another separate location where we're going to meet at the water here in the city or in the greater part of Houston. And we're going to do a river cleansing ceremony.
Okay.
So
All
those
right.
are the 2 days. We just finished our healing journey called the Queen Healing Journey. So shout out to all of the elevated queens who just initiated this past weekend. We
Hey,
had 10 ladies
congratulations.
that went through a 12-week program that is like really diving into focusing on your healing journey and really all the things that we talked about today. And then we'll start the goddess initiation, which is the next phase,
Yeah.
come the summer. And they'll dive into their spiritual gifts and really growing into what that means for them as a goddess and all those things. So those are like my main things that I'm focusing on. And then we have a lot of events for like members and things like that. But yeah, that's what we got going on right now.
Hey man, well, we just speaking nothing but life over it and peace and blessings over you. I want to get into the goal of the show, the reason why I do this, which is philanthropy, garnering support from the audience and putting it towards a charity or nonprofit that you care about. What charity or nonprofit would you like to spotlight today, and why is the cause that it faces so important to you?
Yes. So the Sweet Love Sanctuary is a spiritual school, but we do have a nonprofit church, which is Aduni Fe, which is Sweet Love in Yoruba, Sanctuary of Ancestral Spirituality. And this space, this work of connecting people to themselves, to their ancestors, their gifts, it's something that we want to try to make accessible to as many people as we can. And also inside of building actual community, we do a lot of work, like just literally here in this area. We do cleanup. We, try to, like, we're going to be um, going out into the community and, doing different events where we are educating on the energy of African spirituality and what that looks like. And we say, heal a woman, heal a family, heal a community, heal a nation. And so, all of the proceeds and things are going to go to, keeping this place running, being able to facilitate everything that we do to expand the knowledge of African spirituality, of Orisha, of Ifa, of healing to the people of not just here in Houston, because we all over. We got people all over the country, got people outside of the U.S. And so we're just doing the work of dismantling misogyny and patriarchy and African spirituality and helping folks get in alignment with their destiny and healing generational traumas.
Well, we hope that those who are under the sound of our voices are not just inspired by the conversation, but by the work that you do, and that they donate time, energy, efforts, or even monetarily towards the church. And honestly, I just want to say, Iya Nifa, Ifadunu Oshun or Mishun, I appreciate you
I knew
forever
you
and
would
ever.
know how to
I,
pronounce it.
I appreciate you. I already know me. Whenever I pull out your full name, oh yeah, for sure. Every time. Every single time. But I do appreciate you sitting down with me today, joining me, giving your time, your energy, your effort, your wisdom, not just to myself, but to all the people that you interact with, all the goddesses that you have brought on. Before we close out, I do have one more thing for you, like to leave with the words of wisdom. So,
Okay.
what words of wisdom would you have for these young ladies that are currently struggling with their identities?
Um, the words of wisdom that I would have um is to trust yourself, is to forgive your parents. And the third I would say is to um, go figure out who your ancestors are. And there's going to be a lot of answers for you once you go back inside of yourself. The answer is not in the outside, the answer is on the inside. And so don't be scared to feel, because how you feel is probably correct. So trust that, and you are loved.
Amen.
Ashe. Mm-hmm.
I say,
Amen.
I
All
say,
that.
I say.
Amen. Ashe. Shalom. All that.
Along all the things to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that everybody understands that this is affirmed and that these are amazing words of wisdom.
Right.
Um,
Shall it be?
I'm so grateful that you came today, and sincerely speaking, like I said, I'm speaking nothing but life, peace, and blessing over everything in what it is that you do. And
Thank you.
oh, thank you sincerely. So he's gonna go ahead and bring you down. I'm gonna close out the show, and
Okay.
yeah, hope to have a great. Hope to see you afterwards.
Thank you for having me. Much love.
Okay.
Peace.
Peace. Man, oh man, y'all. I'm always, just amazed by like how much knowledge and good energy I get from these interviews whenever I'm sitting with someone as sincerely just simply amazing as her. Um, this conversation was to me was bigger than spirituality, just bigger than relationships, bigger than healing. It was about rediscovering yourself, after life changes you. About learning how to sit with your truth, evolve through your pain, and still choose growth. So big thank you to the goddess Jess. You guys make sure if you're in Houston, Texas, you check out the Sweet Love Sanctuary. And yeah, make sure you guys follow her, support, and continue pouring into your mind, spirit, and purpose. Tune in next week where I will have another amazing guest, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And yeah, that's really it, man. I'm Ezel Moon, and I'm not doing it unless it's fun and it helps people. Peace.